And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
This is First African Baptist Church, the oldest black church in North America. The building, built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony hold pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written in cursive Hebrew writing. Downstairs, the air holes that the people, when they hid beneath the floors, they were able to use are actually African prayer symbols. This building was built during the night hours. It was also not only used as a place of worship, but it was used as a place to help out on the Underground Railroad. One of the greatest missions I believe ever taken out and carried through was handled beneath the floors of First African Baptist Church. There are many items in here that now stands as proof of the Underground Railroad. In the ceiling of the church is a code that this building is used as a safe place, and that code is 9-patch. 9-patch is a quilt symbol that was used during the Underground Railroad to identify safe places.
Look on the outside edge of the pews. Look on the outside edge of the pews where you are. You see the different markings alongside the edge of the pews? They represent the different tribes that made up our congregation back then and spoke over 6 different languages among themselves. These were small tribes enslaved by larger tribes and sold to Europeans as they came along the African coast. One of the major languages they spoke back then was that of Aramaic and also too of Hebrew, which means the writings read from bottom to top. Assalamu alaikum. Which means peace be unto you. It's not a Muslim term. It's actually the same greeting which Christ gave into the disciples when he met them in that region. Most countries in that region read from right to left. Here in America, we read from left to right. That's why the pastors in the St. John's window up front here are going in numbers 2 through 7 from the right-hand side over to the left, as opposed to the left-hand side over to the right. And everything is crossed in the wall sconce. Hot air rises, cool air descends. I know it's a little warmer upstairs as opposed to down here. That's why I stayed down here. Yeah, I know it's warm up there.
Not only did you bring out, but he also it showed there was some other aspects within the pews that we didn't know. And it says here, thanks for the new look. Thanks for the new look at the characters. Looking at it, that says, it seems to me that you could also see Yisrael in the characters or in the pews. So not only does it says take a grasp of God, but it said take a grasp of Yah or God, Israel, with a bass voice, as you put it, or with a loud voice, meaning praise him loudly. That's what this means. So Abu asked, can we find a coherent sentence? Well, yeah, we just did. And not only that, we got a scholar to back it. So we know what the actual language is. We know what's on the pews. We know what the specific pew says. We haven't broken down all of the pews, but we don't need to break down all of them. We got at least one pew that we can know that it is Hebrew on the pews.
It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over!
Garfield Reed claims that there's a gentleman who made a documentary on the subject and sold it to a university. He might be bringing out more information on that. That it was a gentleman who was, studied in Hebrew and looked at it and concluded that, I forget what the conclusion was. But
Garfield asked specifically, why would I even let, Pastor Kelly speak about him specifically? Why would I even give him the floor to discuss these things? But I believe things do need to be discussed. This, in that sense, is bad if he made an original video trying to claim that these are our people building these churches were Hebrews and building these pews, they were Hebrews, and this was the faith that they were practicing, and they knew it, and the powers that be are hiding it. If it was used as an evangelistic tool and it's come to find out it's not right to say, the pastor has to say, all right, I made a little error here. The church people have to change certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, that still don't have anything to do with blacks in America being Hebrew, but that was just faulty. I can't stand on that and ride on it on the strength that somebody's a pastor, and just because pastors say, because y'all are just as bad as the black church now. Just believe in pastor without doing any research. I mean, maybe everybody that's an urban apologist don't automatically agree with everything that Vocab said. But like I said, Vocab, his good outweighs his bad to the urban apologetic community with the amount of work that he put in. Because all Vocab basically is trying on Islam a little bit here and there, but he's heavy with the Israelite thing. Wait, that don't sound right. Wait, 1 second, that don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone tuning in tonight. Hope all is well with you guys. How you guys doing tonight? Hope all is well. Hope you guys had a great Shabbat. And before we get started, I'm going to go right down the list and acknowledge you guys. I really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. And again, had a very blessed Shabbat myself. Was able to get some rest, some much needed rest. And so I hope and pray that you did the same. And I pray that you, many of you guys have a place of worship. If not, I pray that you're able to connect to a place to be able to still get edified during the Shabbat. But nevertheless, let me go ahead and go through the line here and see who we have on in the chat right now. Let's see who we have here. I want to say peace and blessings to Nadia. Peace and blessings. I want to say salama to you. My buddy Jay Highstyle. I want to say peace and blessings to you as well. Appreciate you. And William Smithers, I want to say shalom to you. Ellen, want to say peace and blessings to you. My sister, want to say shalom to you as well. Sister Shorny, I want to say peace and blessings to Avya. Peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have here? I want to say shalom to you as well. Elaine, thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to say peace and blessings. Salama to Darnell Blackshear. I want to say peace and blessings to you. My cousin Ruhama, I want to say peace and blessings to you. I want to say salama to you. Want to also acknowledge Second Exodus. Want to say shalom to you as well. Sister Carol, shalom to you. My man Larry Bryce, want to say peace and blessings to you. My Ak, want to say peace and blessings to you. Naktaka, want to say peace and blessings. Want to say salama to you. Who else do we have here? Susan, want to say peace and blessings to you. Sadaria, excuse me if I butchered your name. Not intended, not done intentionally, but want to say peace and blessings for you. I mean, to you. Want to say peace and blessings to Sheila. Want to say shalom to you as well, and hope and pray that you had a great Shabbat. Want to say peace and blessings, shalom to Angie Love. Yeah. Who else do we have here that I haven't acknowledged? Let's see here. Cherry chicken flavored honey barbecue pork. Whoa, what in the world? Okay. All right. Nevertheless, let's see what else we have here. All right. Let's see. Unortho or Unortho. Forgive me if I mess up your name. Daughter of Zion. What is it? Unortho or Unortho? But again, peace and blessings. Want to say shalom to you as well. And want to say peace and blessings. Want to say shalom to you, Sister E. Who else do we have here? Want to say peace and blessings to Brother Wayne. Want to say peace and blessings to you. And let's see here. And matter of fact, Sister E, if you want to, I'm going to put the invite. If you want to jump in, I'll just have this in the StreamYard link here I'll just drop it inside the chat. If you want to chime in at any time, feel free. Let's see here. Brother Wayne, want to say peace and blessings to you. Joe's daughter of Zion, want to say peace and blessings to you. And who else do we have here? Sister Sheila, want to say shalom to you. Sister Stephanie, want to say salama to you as well. Let's see here. Enosh Ben Israel, want to say shalom to you. Mr. The Original School, want to say peace and blessings to you. Greetings to you as well. Really appreciate the support. Let's see here. Who else do we have here? Chemo Ben Israel. Hope and pray things are. You had a great weekend, and I pray that you had a great Shabbat and things are okay with you out there in Las Vegas. And okay, you want to let me go ahead and give you a ping pow. Let me go ahead and give you a 3-piece before we get started here. All right, I see you trying to start trouble up in here already. All right. All right, so I see you trying to start trouble already, trying to get everyone worked up already. All right, so peace and blessings to you. Virtuous Jetta, want to say peace and blessings to you. Tia Yah, I want to say peace and blessings to you. M. Kyles, want to say peace and blessings to you. Want to say shalom to you. Who else do we have here? Let's see here. I thought I saw a couple of names, but it's going pretty fast here now. I want to say Shanika. I want to say peace and blessings to you. Who else here? Miss B, peace and blessings to you as well. Let's see here. Renee, BL, want to say peace and blessings to you. Appreciate you tuning in tonight. Let's see here. Let's see, sister, peace and blessings to you. All right. Hope I got everyone. Sister Yvette Powell, want to say peace and blessings to you, my sister. Hope all is well. Let's see here. Joe Nuff. All right. Peace and blessings to you. You know what comes to mind when I see Joe Nuff? I think of Show Nuff from what's the movie? The Last Dragon. Joe Nuff. Appreciate you. Appreciate your support and all. Priscilla Sharp. Peace and blessings. A.K. Womack. Want to say peace and blessings to you as well. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Peace and blessings to Israelite wife and also the soul of our ancestors. Want to say peace and blessings to you as well. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And of course, got to say peace and blessings to my sister, Just Reese, as well as the Orthodox Moor. Want to say peace and blessings to you as well. Appreciate you for tuning in. All right, let me bring Sister Ian here. I see that she's over in the she's waiting for the connect. So let me bring her in. How you doing, Sister E?
Hello, shalom, shalom, salama, everybody, grace and peace. Assalamu alaikum. I saw the beginning of it.
But just how it goes, just being cordial to everyone.
Yes.
Some people make it a deal breaker if we say different types of greetings, whether it's shalom or salama or shalom. Some people take it to the extreme about that, but I don't. So everyone knows, we're saying peace and blessings to them. That's what counts.
Correct.
So how you doing, Sister E?
I'm good. I'm sitting here now working on upcoming content. So I've been in quiet place all day. I was planning to do something tomorrow, but I'm going to reschedule because I need to really get focused and prepared for what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of months. So stay tuned, everyone.
Okay, good. And I'm planning on releasing this video soon. And just to give everyone an update, part 2, I will be releasing it soon. Just getting some inputs for it. And once that's done, I'll go ahead and upload it for everyone to see it. You'll get the notification ahead of time. So prayerfully, I can have it done within the next couple of days at the latest, but it will be up no later than next weekend. That's for sure. So, but yeah, tonight, I just thought I'd just touch on the DNA because of the discussion and, with a lot of people talking about DNA and referring to DNA. And it's always targeted towards us, you know what I mean? Towards our people as a whole, with the DNA proving our connection to ancient Israel. But now you know how it goes. Many things get changed and people want to pivot and all those different things. But I just wanted to touch on the DNA and more so dealing with the Ashkenazi community as we know it. And just touch on a few things, a couple of references, and also just kind of give some key information for us to really understand how important identity is. I mean, identity is very important. So any thoughts you want to share about that?
I can't wait till you start showing your playbook. I will probably provide insight here. It's just this whole identity thing and this whole DNA thing has been a journey, I think, for all of us. When I initially started with the interaction with certain individuals from the UA community, that was a point of reference for them to say, well, prove it in your DNA, prove it in your DNA. Once we start proving things within our DNA, then DNA doesn't matter. And then, even with the kohanim priesthood, which I know you're about to delve into, and it's going to be good, we're going to find out that I'm not going to say anything because I've done some research here recently about that kohanim, and what we'll find out is not quite what they think it is. So,
absolutely, and we're going to use their references too to kind of debunk it. You know what I mean? To give proper clarity, why and touch on why it was put in place, but it just backfired on them.
Yep.
So definitely appreciate you, and whenever you're ready to chime in, just let me know. You know how we do. So yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and get started here. And, just want to, again, for those that are in the chat, just be very respectful, whether you agree or disagree. We still family. Unless there's someone trolling, then, everyone know what to do when it comes to someone trying to troll. So let's go ahead and deal with this. I know that's the thought for today is the DNA does not match, or the DNA does not fit, the DNA does not line up. And, the thought always come out of Genesis is whatever the enemy meant for evil, the Most High would turn it around for our good. So let me go ahead and deal with this. Let me start off with a couple of things here. I want to start off with the understanding of the institution of race. We need to understand that because many of us are waiting for the New World Order to come, but the New World Order is already been here. It's been here for quite some time. It's renewed. It's not a New World Order. It is a renewed order. So it's not a new order again. It's renewed. It's the renewing of the Roman caste system. It's the renewing of the Greek system that they had in place, the renewing of the Babylonians, the renewing of the Egyptians. We could go right down the list. It's the same system. It's the same caste system, but updated and modified. So let's deal with this real quick, and we'll tie it all in together just so that way everyone really understand the importance of certain buzzwords, starting with the institution of race. And this is coming from Audrey Smedley, The Origin of the Idea of Race. And this is what she says. And she's a anthropologist, right? And she's writing this for the Anthropology newsletter, just so you guys can see that in the back. This is dated November 1997. And it is at the top, you see race, the power of an illusion. All right. So it says, contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention and that it was essentially a folk idea, not a product of scientific research and discovery. This is not new to anthropologists. So she's making it clear this is nothing new, that this whole system is based off of a folk idea. It is an invention. It is a tool that is used to institute or reinstitute a caste system for the entire world, right? And we're going to deal with this some more. It goes on to say the term race, which had been a classificatory term like type or kind, but with ambiguous meaning. Let me say that again. But with ambiguous meaning, right? Vague, general, generic. That's what it means, right? Became more widely used in the 18th century and crystallized into a distinct reference for African Americans, Indians, and the Europeans. That's what the article goes on to say. I just didn't put it inside the bullet here, but that's what the article says. In other words, to make a distinction between the conquered and enslaved and those that did the conquering. That's what this whole system is put in place, to make sure that there is a distinction between, again, the conqueror and the conquered, right? The what they would consider to be the elite or the superior group, and that they deem to be superior, and those that they deem to be inferior. Okay. And so it goes on to say, by focusing on the physical and status differences between the conquered and enslaved peoples and the Europeans. You see, it makes it clear between the conquered and enslaved people and the Europeans, to draw a line. Okay. So the emergent ideology linked the socio-political status and physical traits together and created a new form of social identity. But we as a people have been so indoctrinated with this theology of this philosophy of stating that when it comes to us, identity does not matter. And I can prove to you with scripture that identity does matter. But we hold on to a descriptor, which that color black, right? That is nothing more than just a name of a group that they sectioned us off or segmented us. And as you see here, created a new form of social identity. In other words, whatever they came up with constructs that will be identifiable or to this specific group or all the different groups within the system. All right. So just want you to keep that in mind. Created a new form of social identity for the entire world. And so does color matter? Absolutely. I want to give you another reference here. This is coming from the Negro law of South Carolina, 1818. Right. This is what it says. I'm just going to give you a bullet out of here. Section 4. It says the term Negro is confined to slave Africans. Let me say that again. The term Negro, right? And even that term black, right, is confined to slaved Africans. Why? Because you also have what is called the black codes, and sometimes it's called the slave codes. But those are terms, descriptors specifically for labeling all our brothers and sisters that was enslaved. And we've been taught to embrace these terms, right? So again, the term Negro is confined to slave Africans. In other words, it has here the ancient Berbers and their descendants. It goes on to say it does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, the Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars. You know what's interesting, Sister E? You know all the controversy, what they were talking about with the Nick Cannon thing for saying that he's anti-Semitic and all this other stuff, and trying to point the Jews to being Asiatic, far as the Ashkenazi Jews as we know them to being Asiatic. But look at what this says here inside the South Carolina Negro law. You look what it says here, the Negro Asiatics.
And what's so interesting is how I'm gonna let you dig more, because this is answering a few questions. Because if you understand the construct of race, I did a little research in it, and it talks about how the Babylonian Talmud played into it as well. And we know who constructed that, and how and this is during, I think, the Middle Ages, with the
Absolutely.
concept of Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Absolutely.
And it just goes back into, you know, the concept of what a Negro is and who came up with the term Negro. So it's going to get, it's interesting. I'm going to sit back and watch, because I do have a few things I need to ask, but I want you to get through it a little bit more.
Okay. Appreciate it. All right. And so again, guys, the term Negro is confined to slave Africans, right? And I want you guys to pay attention to that. But then it goes on to say, again, it does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as Egyptians, Moors, or Negro Asiatics. All right, so let's go back to this document. You guys know I use this document all the time, right? This is what I default to when we really want to expose Christianity, Catholicism, and show that there was an entire Confederate that came together to enslave our people. And when you read this document, you'll also see it was up in I believe it was 1859 when where the Roman Catholic Church finally decided that they were not going to classify us or consider us to being less human, right? But yet we still see our brothers and sisters embracing the very system that have enslaved our people and continue to enslave our people. We may not be in a physical slavery, many of us, but we're enslaved by way of our thinking and how we process things. All right. So let's deal with this here. Slavery in the Catholic Church. Just to highlight this real quick as we set this up. It says papal grants to the kings of Portugal, giving authority to enslave Saracens. That's a key word right there. Saracens and other non-Christians of West Africa, with whom Christendom. And Christendom is used interchangeably with Catholic, right? Because that's to make the word generic, to make it so that way it can reach everyone. Any and everyone will accept this religious belief system. So Christendom, that's Christianity, that is Catholicism, but it says is at war. So we have to remind ourselves, when we start dealing with the transatlantic slave trade, it's not a slave trade. It is a world war. And we are prisoners or descendants of prisoners of war, right? So that's why we see a lot of the things that we see within the systems. Every system that is built off the institution of race, you will see that our people are at the low end of the totem pole. All right. So it says Christendom is at war from 1452 to 1514. In 1442, a Portuguese captain brought to the Gold Coast some Moorish prisoners of war. Notice what it says, Moorish prisoners of war. In other words, they were at war with each other, and they had some of the Moorish soldiers. And so now the Moors entered into an agreement to free their prisoners. And this is what they did. They exchanged them for 10 Negro slaves. Notice what you see, the term Negro, and it's associated with the word what? Slaves. So when we sit up here and say, call ourselves Negroes and all we're doing is reinforcing that we are slaves. Okay, that's all we're doing. We're reinforcing the thought, the spirit that we are slaves, that we are less than. All right. So we have to pay attention. Words have meaning. But let's see what else it says before we get into the meat and potatoes. It says, and brought these back to Lisbon, a trading settlement was established at Lagos by 1444. It would appear that by 1452, the Portuguese were anxious to establish their property rights over their newly discovered West African territory. All right. And we see a key person here, Pope Nicholas V, all right, which is now known as Saint Nicholas because he was given or granted sainthood and all that other stuff. So he's referred to as Saint Nicholas. Again, there's no coincidence that our people are struggling with Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus. But anyway, let's go ahead and identify these people here. All right. But the other thing I want to point out here is what you see here in red, right? It says here, there is no other explanation of a series of papal documents which applied the well-known contemporary rules of war. You see what I'm saying, Sister E? It said contemporary rules of war. But how come we're not taught that this was a world war? That is just simply a slave trade. But it was a world war. And it's right here documented. They apply contemporary rules of war.
Because the rules far as reparation or repercussions from the end of the war would apply to us. If you put war to it, they would have to possibly pay reparation because we are prisoners of war. If you look at it, we're products of prisoners of war. So I think that's why they kind of hold back too, as well, of saying that this is it was a war. You get what I'm saying?
No, yeah, absolutely. It dumbs us down, truth be told, because it's a difference when we say war versus slave trade. You know what I mean? It really suppresses what actually was taking place during that time.
Yep, it waters it down because it looks like it was just trade agreements rather than conquer and destroy and take over. Because if you look at how the slave trade played into the end result, which was dividing up of Africa, you will see that was the ultimate goal. Because if you even look at it, it was about taking over that land.
Absolutely.
So.
And it makes you think, look at things a little differently. Like, for example, I think I see someone made reference to Negro land. That makes you think about it, from a different perspective of that's the label that they put over it. Like, this is where they are pulling the slaves from, instead of Negro land, the slave land that they are pulling our people from, because we were wanderers, and many local areas refer to our people as being wandering sheep herders. In other words, wandering shepherds, because we were foreign to those territories, especially when we started understanding the diaspora, we began to flee further down deeper into Africa. And that's where you start getting into the Bantu expansion and everything. But they, it makes you see, when you see that understanding of Negro, it makes you look at it completely different.
It does. And what do they call the Igbo? I think Jake said it, the wandering Jews of West Africa? Did he say it?
Well, actually East Africa.
East Africa. But I think that's what I don't know how Jake's put it, but he pretty much called them the wandering Jews.
Oh yeah. He was saying, I'm thinking of the Limbas. Yeah, he said the Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. And he was actually quoting the government document by what's that person named? The Secretary of State.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of it.
Kissinger, yeah. So he was actually quoting out of Harry Kissinger, I believe that's his name, what he was saying about the Jews being the Igbos being the wandering Jews of West Africa, and stated that they were gifted. All right. So yeah, you hit it right on the nail. You hit it right on the nail. All right. And so what's key to this document too, it makes a distinction of all the players, but it says that you know, there is no other explanation of a series of papal documents which applied the well-known contemporary rules of war to the situation in West Africa, whereas the Portuguese were well aware the local Negro inhabitants were not Saracens, were not Muslims, and were not enemies of Christendom. And what makes that important is it makes it clear that our ancestors, right? They made it clear that they were not what, for the most part, practicing Islam because they were targeting that. They were making sure that we weren't when we came on those ships. Of course, you had a couple, a few that that got by, that slipped by, but for the most part, they was making sure that they filtered that out. All right, so let's deal with the Saracens real quick, so that way you get a better understanding of the Saracens. It says, and this is coming from the Britannica.com, it says Saracens in the Middle Ages, any person, in other words, Arab, Turk, or other who profess the religion of Islam. And that is key. So this is making it clear that our ancestors were not practicing Islam. So again, Saracens are Arabs and Turks. Okay. And so, I just want to kind of set the tone with that, just so that way we understand that we are dealing with what, when we look at certain descriptors that was created, that's to further take us or remove us from our identity of who we are. All it takes is what, 3 generations, pushing certain lies and certain things to have us completely removed from who we are, from our heritage. All right. And so the word Catholic, let's deal with this real quick so that way we understand we all on the same page here. Catholic, it means here, it says of the doctrines of the ancient church. It goes on to say, literally, it means what? Universally accepted. Then you see, when you go further down, you see universal, you see general. Again, you see universally accepted. So what did they do? They took the scriptures and continue to what? Interpolate the culture around it to do what? To give this narrative, to generalize it, to make it what? Pleasing, or should I say appealing to other countries that they may conquer, so that way it'll be easier for them to practice Catholicism. Right? They always what? Adjusted. They always added to. That this is why you see a lot of influence of the Romans. You see a lot of influence of Hinduism and some of the other things that mystical systems that are out there. And we already know Judaism has a heavy influence over it as well. But you see that term Catholic means what? Universal, general. All right, universally accepted. Okay, so Catholic means universal. It means general. And then when we go to general, guess what we're going to see here? It says, tells among other things of the creation of the world. But the key here, generation, that's a key word. Nativity. All right. Nativity, excuse me. Then you see origin. And then when you go further down, you see to be born. But then you see race, birth, descendants. And it comes from the Proto-Indo-European word gene. In other words, give birth, beget. So when people say that identity doesn't matter, guess what? They just threw away the entire book of Genesis. They just threw that out the wood. I mean, out the canonization of the text. And it's other texts that you could completely throw away, like the Book of the Kings. You can throw that away. You can throw away Matthews. You could throw away Luke. Once you remove and say identity doesn't matter, you completely what? Stripping down the text. You stripping down the scriptures. Anything you want to add into Sister?
Ultimately, it erases who we are. Because the more you read the Bible, the more you realize that the book was written to Israel, and it's not necessarily leaving non-Israel or what we consider today to be Gentiles. It's not saying that they are left out of the equation, but even when you look at the New Testament and they talk about Paul. Paul was an Israelite that was teaching the Gentiles. Every single time, even when Christ came, Christ had 12, his 12 disciples were what? Israelites. It was always about Israelites doing what they were supposed to do. And ultimately, by way of making the church universal, you've really wiped them away from being a people and just said everybody's lumped together. And that's not how it's ever been. Even throughout time, when you look at Old Testament on through to New Testament, it's always been it dealt with groups and tribes. And that's just how it's always been. But again, people get irritated by that, by saying that, you know what, everybody has access. Nobody says that nobody has access to Christ. We're talking about the promises. What was promised to the children of Israel? What was promised to the seed? And when you make it generic, you wipe away the promise and just generically give everybody the same promise across the board. That goes into that whole concept of hierarchy. They're afraid of the word hierarchy, but but continue on. That's my point.
And you touched on it. Many will use Apostle Paul as if Paul is saying he's redefining who Israel is. And Paul never redefined who Israel is. He always, actually, he was teaching was already there in Torah. Paul, of course, he made it clear that the Most High did not forget about Israel. But he also makes it clear that the Most High gave opportunity for those that are not blood descendants of Israel to have an opportunity to have a relationship with him. But is that something new? That's not new. When we look at, for example, Abraham had blood descendants living in his house, but he also had those that were not blood descendants. But everyone that lived in his house, under his household, all had to be circumcised. All were covered under the covenant, and so, that notion of thinking that that's something new what Paul was teaching. No, it's actually in the scriptures. We go to Exodus chapter 12. We see the law. It says one law is given to who? The homeborn and the strangers. And we know that, of course, Israelites celebrate and honor the Pesach. But then we also know that there was others, that a mixed multitude, those that were not Israelites, that was honoring the Pesach as well, because the scripture makes it clear. So there was never this thing where all of a sudden it's something new that Paul was teaching. This is something that's, you see the residue of this, or should I say the origins of this, all through scripture. There was always a mixed multitude, or those that were not blood descendants of Israel among the Israelites. But it was still showing that the Israelites, that's the government of the Israelites. When we look at Israel, that's dealing with the government of the Israelites, but being at the head of the government, at the head of Israel being a nation. And that's all it is. But unfortunately, many take it out of context.
Yep. And the thing is, at one time, Israel was a nation. Everybody celebrated it when they thought Israel was the Israel we see now, or the Jews in Israel now. Everybody celebrated them being a nation. But until people say, wait, hold on, the nation is not them, the nation are these people, now all of a sudden it doesn't matter. If that's the case, then we need to stop celebrating what goes on in Israel. Because again, it's like on one end you want to say race and it doesn't matter, but on the other end you're celebrating Israel. It's like, wow. So I think it's deeper. Like you said, you're getting ready to delve, and I got a feeling I know where you're going, but it's a little bit deeper than just about who we are. It's more so about race, and the construct of race would fall apart.
Exactly. And so, and that's why I wanted to deal with the genetics, but I want to set it up by dealing with race, because if we understood how DNA and all of that back in the 50s, I believe it was like 51, even though it was discovered back in the 19th to 20th century, but they really didn't start pushing it the way that we have come to know it until the 1950. And they were still using this to try to validate the institution of race. They want to use this to validate that through DNA that they can prove that we are lesser than everyone else when it comes to intellects and everything.
Yep.
All right. So let's see here what we got here. All right. So going to the word Genesis, as you know, I'm just going down to the level, the different layers. So we go to, when we say Genesis, it points to the word generic. And when we look at generic, it says here belonging to a large group of objects. Now we see what? Race, kind, right? And then it goes further. You see what? That word gene, but then it says of a general kind, not special. All right. So you start seeing when you see that term universal is interchangeable with general, is interchangeable with generic, right? Of a general kind, but it still deals with what? It says race, kind. And he threw us into what? A generic color descriptor. And so when we go further here, right? Another thing I want to touch on is the word kahan, right? In other words, we're dealing with the priest, but it says to officiate as a priest, right? So that's the primitive root word, even though many will say kohan, but this is the primitive root word right here. Kahan, that's it right here. So to meditate in religious services, it goes on to say to officiate as a priest. That's what the word means. So let's see what else do I have here. This is another article I want to highlight here, just kind of giving an idea of, especially when we're dealing with the different what do we want to call the different haplogroups and how they come about when you really understand the haplotypes or haplogroups. All that is just pretty much the mutations of the Y chromosome, and they put it into groups, and they assign these letters to different areas and different regions. So in this document, it kind of gives you some information on that. And so it really, when we deal with, as you see here, is what is up here. I wanted to get to where you see in red, where it says E and J haplogroups have Middle Eastern origin. But we have to understand that, when you start understanding DNA, not just DNA itself, but technology. And Sister E, you in the technology field like I am, you've been in it for quite some time. We know that technology is what? It's always changing.
Ever changing.
It becomes outdated. It used to be a 5-year curve. Now it's like what, a year and a half?
Yeah. Things change fast. So
so the DNA technology is ever evolving. If I remember correctly, the J haplotype was not created until like the 80s or the 90s.
Yep, it's ever changing, and they always going to create subgroups within subgroups to always make sure they maintain a level of control. And just a little bit, E and J gonna change. Like you said, technology is ever changing. What I like about Gen Match is that never changes. That's what they don't like. So
exactly. And we touched on it too offline about how our report, how the information is being displayed from, for example, ancestry. It's constantly changing. When I first did my DNA with Ancestry, this is almost 5 years ago, it came back saying that I was 49% Ghana. Now it says that I'm less than 5% Ghana.
Mm-hmm. And what's so funny is Nigeria is like saying America is a melting pot. Nigeria is almost like it was a trading route or a trading area. So to put people in Nigeria, that's another generic way of putting us, because there's so many tribes that came through Nigeria. So when I see 23andMe, when they say Nigeria, it's like it's a little bit deeper than that. So it's easy. I mean, you will look up and probably find someone of white skin complexion that probably have Nigeria. That's how. And when I started researching Nigeria, I said Nigeria is just as generic. And I'm not talking about the country itself, but it is a land that you have multiple different types of cultures, ethnic groups, communities, tribes that all live there, because it was like almost like an America, just about. It was just a major trading area. And I said, wow, especially when you get into Ghana as well. At that time, there was a trading route. So But again, they love to say, well, you're Nigerian. Okay, that's no different than calling somebody American in my eyes. It's deeper than that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's why I want to kind of deal with some of these DNA terms that you hear people talking about. For example, the kohanim. And I want to bring that up so that way. And this is coming from their own reference. This is like a handbook I've been having for quite some time. I had this book for years on top of years, and this is what I use to kind of debunk, the terms, far as the formulas, far as to show, like, for example, this is what the Ashkenazi Jewish community would use to try to validate themselves. And this book highlights all the flaws in all the testing that they came up with, because each one of their testings that they came up with did not include any of our people. And many people don't know that, right? And we're going to give clarity on what is this kohanim test that they came up with. And so let's see what it says here. So and this is coming directly from this book, guys. You guys can purchase it as well. It's a great book. I've had this book for years, and it gives you, it has a number of arguments that literally it raised questions on different testings that they put together to try to validate themselves. So here, just in this particular area about the kohanim, it says 3 key criticisms of the testing. And I'm going to read some of the critical areas. It says, the population studied are defined wrong. The term Sephardic Jews being used for North African Jews, right? And it goes on to say Sephardic Jews are Jews whose ancestors were expelled from Spain in 1492. Zusman Diskin suspects that the author used the term Sephardic as it is used in Israel by religious politicians, a terminology that has nothing to do with science, right? And it goes on to say, it highlights far as Skorecki in terms of dealing with how this test, which is called the chi-square test, that was used to differentiate between laymen and kohanim. In other words, they want to distinguish who is Ashkenaz, like among the Ashkenazi community, they want to distinguish who is the Levitical priest. So they want to come up with a test, and I'll read what's in the book, but just kind of giving everyone a heads up, what they decided to do among all their groups, right? They want to see who had the least popular Y mutation, right? And when we understand the term Jew, right? If you look at the law of return, you could go to their own website. If you go to their own website, I think it's Israel. I can't remember the name of it, but just Google the law of return, Israel's law of return, and it'll take you there, and you'll see for yourself. But it says that a Jew is someone that is converted over to Judaism, that's practicing Judaism. Right now, if you wanted to go to Israel and become a citizen of Israel, right, you would have to denounce your belief system and tell them that you embrace Judaism. That's a fact, right? So also someone who is born to a Jewish mother. That's how they identify and define Jew under the law of Aliyah, the law of return. So why is that important to know? Well, if you say that a Jew is someone that converted over, someone that is practicing Judaism, so that means that you can have a wider pool of DNA that you can pull from. That means that you have Iranians, and I'm going to show you that that's who they use a lot of people. I mean, the key people that they use was the Iranians from the what they call the Middle East territories, right? So let's see what else this book says. It says here, as North African Jews are an aggregate population, in other words, composed of genetically different populations. That's a red flag right there. You see what I'm saying, Sister E? It says the North African Jews are an aggregate population composed of genetically different populations.
Mm-hmm.
How can we be composed of different, when it says genetically different populations, we starting with that what? Y chromosome, the
Correct.
mutations of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm listening right now because it's just interesting to see when they break down the different North African Jews and how they are composed of different population. And you have that, like you said, that Y chromosome. It goes back into even when you start looking at the maternal chromosomes, when you start going into the L's and how it mutated from L1 to is it L2, and it's different. If it's different types of mutations when it comes to that, but that L1 off the top, or that L, I guess, maternal haplotype is tied over into that Levant area, what we consider to be the Levant or Middle Eastern.
Absolutely. Now I see a question here. I was looking at the chat here while you were speaking. Can someone explain the title to me, please? Sister Rochelle, when you say the title, are you referring to the title of the session that we're in? Or are you referring to when you say title, are you referring to the book itself? All right. So far as the playbook tonight, when I say the DNA does not line up, everyone cannot have, we cannot have it's impossible to say that you can identify let's just say the Levitical priests among a group of people if they all are the same people. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to see? Yeah. And I'm going to show it here, the questions that they ask, because if let's just say you got siblings, right? How can you determine, right? Let's just say how many brothers and sisters you have, Sister E?
Oh, I have.
Oh, don't tell me you got like 45. No, I'll just messing with you.
I got one behind me, my younger sister, and I got 2 sisters in front of me and an older brother.
Now, all of you guys, that's just like saying one of you guys, how we're going to determine who is the Levitical priest is we're going to see what is the least connection between you guys. Well, you guys should have the same Y mutation. So right. The only way you're going to have a difference is if you have someone else that's a convert. You know what I mean? Right. If you have the same father and all your Y mutation is different, something is wrong there, because your mutation is going to be what? That Y mutation, even though of course that's through the men, but that Y mutation is still going to be the same. Right. And I'm going to show you that here, some of the things that this book identifies. It calls out. So it says here, it goes on to say, Bani Tamir, Ashbel, and Bar Shanai showed that Jews differs significantly. It says what? Genetically from Libyan. And we know where Libya is, right? That's right at the northern portion of Africa. Right. So you see how they use converts to kind of build up their database for DNA to justify themselves. But it says from Libyan, Tunisian Jews, conclusion from the chi-square tests are not justified. It goes on to say the proposal to consider the Cohen model haplotype as characteristics for the old Hebrew population is not supported by data from other populations. Right? It says this haplotype is the most common among Iraqi Kurds, Southern and Central Italians, and Hungarians. Right? And it goes on to say, in addition, and this is where the monkey wrench is to their whole formula, is because they found that DNA in who? The Limbas. And the Limbas have the oral traditions. They have the confirmation, the other points of confirming who's Israel. Right. But it says here, this haplotype is most common among Iraqi Kurds, Southern and Central Italians, and Hungarians. In addition, it occurs among the Limbas. This may look strange because The composition of the haplotype is based on a unique event. For example, a mutation. However, it is not known when this unique event took place. When this was very long ago, this haplotype cannot be used for determining relationships between groups that only arose during the last 2,000 years. So this is telling you what this is saying, that the group that rose in the last 2,000 years is the Ashkenazi Jewry, right? Because I have another article that's based off of Nature Communication. They dealing with DNA. They traced the Ashkenazi Jewish community back to 330 people from the Middle Ages, not from the Antiquities, but from the Middle Ages.
I'm listening. I'm trying to, because while you listen, certain things you're saying, I'm looking up. So it's keep going. I'm listening.
Okay.
I need to be in the audience because a lot of this stuff I'm listening to, and you kind of make connecting the dots for me. Because when you go into the haplotypes and you talk about the migration into Spain, into the Africas, and how the different, but go on, because I got something I may tell you on the side that I ran across that may be good for a later conversation.
Okay. Now this is the conclusion of that in this chapter. It says conclusion about the Jewish priest, right? This study of the Jewish priest contains an inconsistency. We see the following: Jacob and 12 sons, who of course all had the same Y chromosome. It says of one of these sons, we have the following descent. You see Levi, Kohath, we see Amram, Moses, and Aaron. It goes on to say both Moses and Aaron, forefathers of the priests, therefore had the same Y chromosome as Jacob, and thus the same as the remaining sons of Jacob and their male progeny. It goes on to say, why then would today's priests have a different and the same Y chromosome from all other Jews, unless laymen are to a large extent descendants of converts? That's the only way you're going to have these different variations among the Jewish community. That's the only way, is you're taking DNA from converts and meshing it in.
Correct.
That's the only way.
Correct.
That this right here is making it clear. It says, why would then today's priests have a different and the same Y chromosome from all other Jews, unless laymen are to a large extent descendants of converts?
Now explain what layman is.
Go ahead, Sister E.
I'm asking you.
Well, this is dealing with the general people.
Okay. So the general population had the general pool of Jews that they're using now, which are what the people would consider to be Jewish. Their chromosome that they're testing against our people are testing against converts and not the actual ancient people. Or what I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to say too much, but it sounds like what you're saying is the kohanim that we know now is based off of a convert DNA construct. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, what they were doing basically, when you look at how they when they put this test together, the key is the Iraqis, right? Because the Iraqis is in that area, the Middle East area, and when you include their DNA into your testing, guess what? And we know that the Limbas has migrated from what they call Northeast Africa, right? What they call the Middle East now. So we know that DNA is pretty much, for example, when we see the E haplogroup, right? It's just telling us the region where people descended from. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
That's all. It's just saying that we all lived in a certain region, right? And so with the historical facts about the Limbas, right, it tells us that, they originated from that area. And then, of course, with Rabbi Hamadishi, he gave oral traditions of how they migrated from there. And I don't want to get too ahead of the interview that you're about to do. But this is why there was a lot of issues to the testing here, because remember what Hamadishi said? They tested them and then they went back, right? Because theirs came up 20%, while the person that tested them was 1.20%. So it's like, wait a minute. So they they went back and tried to adjust the test to see if to suppress the numbers. But then guess what? It came up even higher, right? The more they tried to tweak this test, the Limba, Hamadishi and the whole group that was tested, their numbers increased instead of decreasing.
Yep.
So that tells you who's the original from that area. But again, and I want to say peace and blessings to Teo out there. I see you in the chat here. And Teo, if you want to jump in, feel free. I'll just put the link again inside the chat. I mean, in that way, if you want to jump in, feel free to chime in if you want to do so. But strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. And he's quoting from the Jewish Almanac. That's like one of my favorite references. And just so happened, I don't have it sitting next to me because I don't have my bag next to me. But I keep that book with me at all times. And that's why they point out that you cannot call the Jews that we know of today, say that they are connected to the ancient people. You cannot say Jew and connect it to the term Israelite or Hebrew.
I got a question, and maybe we can talk about this later. How did it shift in the Bible? Because you notice in Old Testament, or what they consider to be Old Testament, it was Israel. And as we went into the New Testament, the term changed from Israel to Jew.
Well, that's one of the things. And when you start dealing with transliterations, and then you also dealing with scribes, when you look at the transliterations, when you look at, for example, when you see Jew, right? You see, you see Udaman. You don't see what we see the transliteration into the Greek for Israel. You'll see Judah, right? It's not what we think. They use that term Jew to be interchangeable with all of Israel, right? So when you look at, for example, let's just go, I'll pull up a scripture here just to give an example here. Let me see here. Let me go to the famous scripture that many use. Was that Romans chapter 9?
Yes.
Right?
They love that scripture.
They love that scripture, man. It's like, man, that's like what many use of from Babylon to Timbuktu. Yeah. That's like one of the books right there that many use. So yeah, so when we look here, Udeos, right? What scripture is that? So when we get here, when it Romans chapter 9, verse 24, which says, even us, whom that are called, not of the Jews, Udameos, but of the Gentiles, right? And this is where you start getting the confusion at, because all through what is called the Old Testament, and inside the testaments of the disciples, we see that they refer to it as the law and the prophets. But all through there, you see references to the northern and southern kingdom. So in this text, is it dealing with all of Israel when it says Jew? Absolutely not, because you'll see Udeos that's there. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Udameos, right? But anyway, but Udeos, right? You'll see that that's the word there in the transcripts, right? And we know that word Udeos, and when we look at Jews is supposed to be a transliteration of Udeos. Udeos is what we would actually say Judah. So you had Judah the tribe, you had Judah the son of Jacob, then you also had Judah the southern kingdom. And the southern kingdom consisted of initially two nations, the Benjamites and the Judah, the tribe of Judah. And then later you had the Levites that fled from the northern kingdom because Jeroboam just went crazy, you know what I mean? Replacing the priesthood, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And so they fled to Jerusalem, which was still under the authority of the southern kingdom. So that's how they meshed together. But yeah, so when you see there, you see that it's referring to who? the nation of Judah, the nation, the tribes, of Benjamin, Levi, they're all part of there. So when we look at that, right, so and when we properly read the text is dealing with who? Israel. When you read the entire chapter, I literally did an exegete of this text, and I literally tied in every scripture Paul was referring to, that's referring to the northern and southern kingdom. And so when we see here, right, it says, even us whom he had called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. And then you see verse 25, and he saith also in Osee, in other words, Hosea, I will call them my people, which are not my people, and her beloved, which was not which not beloved. And I did a lesson on this too, for those that want to go and look at the in-depth details of what I taught. It's called Words of Confusion, Jew and Gentile. And I really go into the details of this. But if we go to Hosea chapter 2, right, verse 20, starting at verse 22, actually we could go to verse 23. Right. It says, and I will sow unto her meat in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. And I will say to them, which are not my people, thou art my people, and they shall say, thou art my God, thou art my Elohim, while others would say Elohim. Right. But still, we see it right here. Yep. And the entire book of Hosea, especially chapter 1, starts off with dealing with Israel being a divided kingdom, but it's dealing with Israel, cheating on the Most High per se, and is using it as, kind of like a metaphor, so to speak, or an idiom, however you want to term you want to use. But it's saying that Israel had an affair with the Most High, began to cheat on the Most High, and produce what? Seeds, right? So those seeds, right, and we're dealing with the northern southern kingdom. Those seeds, the names of those seeds represents the judgment that's coming on the seeds. You know what I mean? They came out of it, the northern and southern kingdom. I'm not trying to go geek mode, but nevertheless, when you read the New Testament, not everywhere you see is not the translation of what many people think, that it's the blood descendants of Israel and those that are not the blood descendants of Israel. Actually, you'll see many cases. I'm not saying everywhere you see it, but in this particular text, for example, is dealing with the northern and southern kingdom. You notice you don't see anything referencing the northern and southern kingdom in what we call the New Testament.
Yep, it doesn't. It doesn't. And a lot of people say they don't reference it, and we get off because I want you to stay on course, because they had already been put in captivity by way of the Assyrians. They were already gone. But and that was my assumption also as well. But it goes back into the concept of he was looking for the lost tribe of Israel, and he wasn't just looking for Judah or southern kingdom. He was also looking for the northern kingdom when Christ came.
Exactly. And see, that's where when we look at that word Jew, as Minister Teu had pointed out, that is a word of confusion. Yep. Why? Because we're taking that word Jew, and even what's his name? What's the guy name? Freeman. I got his video up. What is his name?
Oh,
Friedman. I can't think of his full name. Friedman. He wrote the book Facts Are the Facts, and I have his lecture on that on We Woke. But if you guys look him up, let me see here. Let me see if I can get his full name for you. But I know his name is Freeman, but I can't remember his full name. Yeah, Benjamin Friedman. Facts Are Facts. If you don't have it, read that. Get that book or listen to the audio that's on the We Woke, and he literally breaks it down. He makes it clear during his time. He was a millionaire, right? And he took his own money to expose the Jewish community, and he was a Jew, right? And he was exposing them, showing the tactics that they're using, showing even the confusion that that word Jew has caused in the church, right? And saying that, he challenged theologians and everything. He, the secondary meanings that was attached to it, even the term Semitic, he really calls it out. And of course, you know how it goes when you start going against certain communities. you get a certain label, and they demonize you, and people don't take you serious, or they think that you just, they'll call you crazy or whatever the case may be, but they won't deny what was being presented, but they'll just label you. All right. So I encourage everyone to listen to that lecture. He really breaks it down. And also I have Aaron Elhake, and he completely debunks the Jewish community as we know it too, with the DNA. All right. So here's another thing I want to deal with. Right. You see these images right here. All of these different people up here are different Jews. All right. These are Ashkenazis. Right. You see Asian Jews to the bottom left. Right. And you see Ethiopian Hebrews to the right. So how can all of them be the same people? Right. And, we know that within our community, we come in all kinds of shades. You know what I mean? But at the same time, how is it that we don't have this extreme in terms of variation, and our community was raped by every nation, and we're still maintaining our appearance? And guess what? This book breaks it down. Right? Let's get to it. Let's see what they say here. And this is the question: how can they all be Jews and yet they are completely different? Right? And this is getting into what is called genetic distances. Right? And this is what it says about genetic distances. A large part of the study was devoted to the determination of genetic distances between the different populations. Through this method, genetic markers from different Jewish populations are compared. The smaller in the relationship, the more differences in DNA may have arisen. Such differences are called distances. And notice what it says here: 75 Caucasians, in other words, white population, based on 9 markers, the genetic distance analysis show that East European Jews were closest to the inhabitants of Thrace, the region shared by Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. It goes on to say Bulgarian Jews came next, followed by 36 non-Jewish populations, and only then the second Jewish population, the Iranian Jews. Other results showed a large Italian component in the gene pool. And then it goes on to say, of the Eastern European Jews, from all these results, it appears genetically the different Jewish community don't have much in common. That's a deal breaker right there.
Yeah, it
How
is.
is it that they're literally saying that the Jewish community, genetically, all these different groups have nothing in common with their DNA?
Wow. And you look at how we all are spread across. Let's just look at the example of us in general. And people are saying something, and what they're doing is really validating. And they think that they're attacking, but they're validating. They're saying, well, how is it that you all are so close to the Limba tribe? How is it that every single one of y'all are so close? Because we have the same markers.
We're from the same group. We're the same people.
Validates the point of, so why is it you're questioning us when we're closely related to them? But when you look at the Iranian Jews, when you look at the European Jews, and you look at their genetic markers, they're different in most cases. That's interesting. And that's what you're saying, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
We got a problem here, because at least the content, we see continuity. We see, your DNA, my DNA, Teo Ministries. We see Dante's. We see even some of the urban apologists who did their DNA lines right up with ours.
That is hilarious.
But the people that they're questioning is ours, not the people that came up with this system.
Correct. Even when we look at the other projects, we all still are similar in a lot of places. So it's like, it's really telling you something. But yeah, they argue with us because we're closely matched, and not argue with people that are so different from each other. That's crazy. So,
and we should have a close match. The question would be if we don't have a match. Elder Hamadishi, he pointed out that the Limbas was all in West Africa and on those ships, the slave ships.
yeah, Yep. And he even talked about how with their migration patterns, if you look at the Limba's migration patterns, and they started in Yemen, and they landed in Zimbabwe, Nigeria, different areas, you see that how in jet match our footprints look. It's like you'll see at the very bottom, which has the highest proximity, I would say, because it was so long ago, starts out in the area of Yemen, and how it leads all the way up to Limba. I can understand if you had Limba, but it showed only Nigerian, like you never had a migration point. But even when you look at jet match, all of us have the same: Yemen, Ethiopia, and all those different areas, and it does all tie together. So it's interesting. Tay said snip.
Man, good thing I wasn't drinking anything, because you would have heard my mic probably would have shorted out. Man, so even when just thinking about what we're talking about, right? And Dante, the document that he made reference to, that really helped me go in a certain angle direction with the pews, right? He in that document, Black Jews, the religious challenge or political versus religion, right? Before we had DNA and all of this, they already had a criteria set in place to determine who is the Israelites, and what is said here, this is the criteria. It says here, A, witnesses tales of the explorers who mentioned the existence of communities of Black Jews on the African continent, and particularly in the areas where the slave ships picked up the Black slaves. Number 2, rites and customs, which have more or less explicit analogies with those of Judaism. And number 3, it says the semantics and the dialectology of some African societies reveal some features comparable with those of Judaism. And then number 4, it says the deductions and conclusions of anthropological and sociological work done in Africa. So those are the 4 criteria right there that, for example, the Limbas and the Igbos, and we could go right down a list of other tribes, because I know those are the popular ones we mentioned. That's the criteria that's used, and that's the criteria that proved who we are. This DNA is this is a new construct. This is going into the 50s, right? And again, lining it up with the institution of race. But there's a lot of flaws within it. As we see right here, is being identified. And there's one key thing I'm going to share before we wrap up. But this is why I came up with the thought that the DNA does not line up. So why is it that we're coming under the scrutiny and not those people coming up under the scrutiny? And this is not a book that none of us have wrote, right? The Origin of Ashkenazi Jewry. None of us wrote this. But yet we're being challenged, all right? But, oh well, comes with the territory, right? So it says here, genetically, the different Jewish communities do not have much in common. Often they appear to be more related to the population in the midst of which they lived when its generic material was available. So this is saying that they're converts.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Y'all remember that?
That's right. That's what Eddie Murphy, right?
I thought it was on Andy Griffith. The guy be like,
oh yeah. You talking about Gomer. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I thought you was dealing with Eddie Murphy with the the one where he played all those roles.
Oh yeah, he said that too. But I just thought about that because someone said surprise, and I said surprise, surprise, surprise.
See, sister, you showing your age now. You going Andy Griffin up in here.
I was watching reruns. Oh.
Don't try to back out of that one right there. No, I'm just joking with you. But again, we are under the scrutiny. But I have other references. I have references that I have that can further prove that confirms this here, but I'm just using this right here because this is kind of like the book I carry around. And when I would engage rabbis, guess what? This is the book I pull out. And guess what? In the end, they'll ask me questions of, how did you know that? How did you know to get this book? How do you know to get, not that I'm wrong. They'll just say, how do you know this information? Right. So here's another thing I want to highlight here. Right. This is another formula called the random genetic drift. Right. This is another formula that they would use called the random genetic drift. It says the explanation without foreign genes is based on the assumption that originally there was one Jewish population from which small groups voluntarily or forcibly left for other countries. The original population had a specific gene pool, and the genetic differences between the different groups of Jews must have come about during the 2,000 years of the dispersion through a genetic mechanism that is often called random genetic drift. So this explains, I'm just going to go over the mechanism. It says the mechanism works as follows, right? A few individuals within the parental population possess gene A, right? Feature A, all right? And it goes on to say a few people from the total population go to another country, and after a certain time, it appears that their descendants possess gene A, right? So since no other genes entered the population from outside, gene A must have, in other words, accidentally been present in those few people. And it goes on to say the next gene spread among the descendants of the little group until it became fixed, which means that every member of the population possessed the gene. So the question now to be asked is, how long does it take before a gene becomes fixed, right? The most important factor for this to happen is the size of the original population, the few people that left the country. And this is the formula right here. You see, time, in other words, in years, equals 4 times the initial number times the duration of one generation, in other words, in years. So I'll say it again. The formula in this this testing right here, right? Time equals 4 times the initial number times the duration of one generation. All right. So let's see what it says here. So it says if the small group consists of, say, 50 people, right? And if we take the duration of a generation to be 25 years, this means that it will take 4 times 50 times 25, which equals 5,000 years before everybody carries that gene. Wait a minute, we got another 250 years to go, right? So this debunks them right here. So it says, since the Jews were carried off, and this is referring to the Ashkenazi, since they, want to say that they're at the diaspora, but it says since the Jews were carried off by Romans around the 70th century, right? That's why we still got a lot of, we still got a lot, many more years to that they have to go through in order to what? Substantiate that claim.
Yeah,
they short, right? They still owe another 3,000 years.
Yep. Surprise, surprise, surprise. That's Gomer Pyle too.
So you see how this just, this right here, just this book right here. And like I said, they literally go over in this book, identifies a number of different, a number of different formulas that they use to try to determine who's who they are. And you see that, guess what? It doesn't match. It does not line up. And that's why, I came up with the thought of saying that the DNA doesn't match, which it doesn't.
That's interesting. They got to have 3,000 more years before they can all be the same?
Exactly.
It gets more and more interesting. Oh, wow. The jig is up.
Now, guess what? We fall under the criteria, and I'll bring it up here. Let me take this one up, take this one down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bring up what I just read from with the Black Jews, you know, when it was talking what I just read from the criteria that was established before all this DNA stuff, that we met the criteria, you know. So let me see here.
And I'm ordering that book ASAP, The Origin of the Ashkenazi Jewry, because it's still out there. It's just a matter of finding it. But I am ordering that book.
And I've been mentioning this book for years on top of years. And I tell you, it's like, it's one of these, this is the book that I use to really debunk the DNA in terms of the Ashkenazi Jewish community as we know it. Because it's like, how can you get around it? You cannot get around it. Right. And so this is what I was reading right here. What it says here, it says, were there Black slaves who were Jewish through religion who maintained the faith of their ancestors after they had been forcibly transported to America? Only through an analysis of the mythology of the Jewish African origins of the Black Jews will this become clear. The following are the major sources that need to be considered in such analysis, rather. Right? You see, they give the criteria. They name 4. So we held, you know, we held to these you know, the analysis that they did. We met these requirements. This is before DNA came into place. But now guess what? When you start understanding the DNA, how it's been used, the goal was to try to further separate us from that territory. And that's why we were never included in any of their formulas that they created.
Correct. I just read that you were talking about it, and that's what I was looking at. It's like a wow moment for me.
You know, so it's, you know, like I said, I just wanted to show that here. Now, what you was referring to the Talmud, I'll pull that up here real quick. And also I'll pull up what Minister Teyu had pointed out about the reference, the book that he referenced, which is the Jewish Almanac 1980. And I do make reference to that here. Let me pull that up here. And let's see. All right, we all a bunch of geeks here, so we got all kinds of presentations, and you know what I mean. We got a lot of information here. So, but let me pull up what he just pointed out, what he made reference to, and also let me pull up the law of return that I mentioned here. Let me pull that up here because I did mention that just so that way people could see for themselves that what I mentioned, so that way it doesn't appear like I'm making stuff up. You know how people are. They'll start trying to say, hey, they making stuff up on the fly. But let me show you the reference here. Let me see here. All right. So this is the law of return that I made reference to. It's the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And it says for the purpose of this law, Jew means a person who was born of a Jewish mother or has become converted to Judaism and who is not a member of another religion.
Keyword religion.
You see, and so when you go over there, you have to literally convert over to their religion.
And you know, that's a good conversation we can have later, but that's something that and we can have a side conversation. I may have another conversation about that. They are now pretty much starting Ashkenazi in Israel, accepting the Hebrew Israelites. They need the Israelite community. But what they're trying to do, and I think Kohanim brought it up as well, they want them to convert to Judaism. That's the only way they can come into Israel. And if you know what the conversion of Judaism means, it means rejecting the Messiah.
Exactly. And matter of fact, they were trying to do that with the Ethiopians that were returned as well. They were trying to force them into practicing Judaism. And I believe a law came down that they decided not to force that on them.
But yet they're getting the limba in particular and trying to get them to convert over to Judaism. So that's a whole nother, but I'm not going to give any information just yet, but Hamadishi is coming back very soon and we're going to have a long conversation about that
Yeah.
one.
And so what we were the book that Minister Teo had pointed out, and this is it right here. For those that want to get this book right here, it's called The Jewish Almanac, but the page is page 3, right? And it's the very first paragraph, and it says, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. The first Hebrews may not have been Jews at all. And, in that they also said the same things along the line with the contemporary Palestinians, right? Because we know that the Romans, came up with the terminology Palestine versus Philistine. So, but yeah, but they make it clear right here that to use that word Jew interchangeably with ancient Israelites or even refer to them as Hebrew. you see the holes right here. It's like, wait a minute, how can you get around that?
Word games, yeah.
You cannot get around that. But yet, we're the problem. We're the problem. But their own literature tells on them. It literally tells on them. All right. Let me see here. Let me get one more thing here. Let me get the reference that you pointed out. I got all kinds of.
I know you have no telling how many. You have 500 slides. I know that's over 500 slides.
This is one of my slides. This is like the condensed slide that I kind of use as my main one that I pull out when I'm dealing with the Jewish community.
You have a book just about.
So that's what this is, a book. And I can pick apart every argument about the Jewish community with this right here, from the doctrines to to the idol worshiping and everything. Let's see here. With pedophilia. All right, here we go. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. Here we go. Because the other one was dealing with I messed this one up. This is dealing with the influence of Judaism on the Mormons. Let's see here. Let me go a little further. Yeah, I was in the vicinity. Here we go. This is it right here. This is what you're referring to. All right. This is the Talmud Mas Barakoth 58b. And it says this. It says, and when people start understanding the Talmud, they write it in terms of conversation, what they call it, the apparatus criticus. In other words, Rabbi A said, Rabbi B said, Rabbi C said. So they said in a way like they're confirming 2 or more witnesses. Does that make sense? So that's how they, that's how it's written, as if it's a discussion and they're confirming one another. So when you see Rabbi Joshua B. Levy, right, this is giving his thoughts, and this is what they taught. All right. So it says, on seeing pockmarked persons, one says, blessed be he who makes strange creatures. An objection was raised if one sees a Negro, right, a very red or white person. What they're referring to is someone that has albinism, right? A hunchback, a dwarf, right? And then it goes on to say, right, in the same context, right, it says, our rabbis taught on seeing an elephant, an ape, or a long-tailed ape. One says, blessed is he who makes strange creatures. And they got us lumped into comparing us to what? To who? Apes, right? Tails, because they were trying to say that our people have tails, and it was all kinds of crazy stuff that they were saying about our people. All right. And then when we go to Sanhedrin 108b, it says, our rabbis taught 3 copulated in the ark, and they were all punished: the dog, the raven, and Ham. The dog was doomed to be tied. The raven expectorate, I'm not going to get into all of that because it's pretty gross. But then it says Ham was smitten in the skin. And then when you go down to the footnotes of here, 34, it says an example from the descendants of Cush, the Negro who is black skinned. Right. So you see that same that same thought is carried over to the Jehovah Witnesses. You see that in the Mormons. You see that right across the church and Catholicism. You see that right across the board.
That's interesting. So when people accept the fact that they're, never mind, I was gonna be special because in term of what how we have constructed ourselves to be a race and how we're viewed based off of the Bible when it comes even within our own community, they're pretty much taking a Talmudic stance when it comes, and they don't even understand the stand that they're taking, because the concept of Ham and how Ham came about and to lump us with Ham is almost taking, like I said, the Talmudic approach to it, and it's not really
Exactly
correctly.
And that just shows you the influence that they have.
Yep.
That shows the influence that they have. And this is one document I show periodically when I'm dealing with the Jewish community. This is the very document I used to shut them down, right? Because this document right here, this court case that made it all the way to the Supreme Court, literally tells us, and they tell you how the Jewish community is viewed in this country. They're not viewed as being anything outside of being Caucasians, right? I'll read it real quick. Some of the people that's listening may have already seen me teach this, but it's always good to go over information again, rehearse it, right? So it says here, right, after their synagogue, and this is the case right here, Shari Tefillah congregation versus Cobb's, right? Because there was vandalism. Some Caucasians vandalized their place of worship. Okay. And so this is the court case right here. It says the Fourth Circuit syllabus after their synagogues was painted with anti-Semitic slogans, phrases, and symbols. Petitioners brought suit in federal district court, alleging that the desecration by respondents violated 42, and then it gives the whole code right here. The district court dismisses petitioner's claim, and the Court of Appeals affirmed, holding that discrimination against Jews is not racially discriminated under. And you see, it's mentioning here 1982, and it goes on to say held, and then we see a charge of racial discrimination within the meaning of states the case cannot be made without alleging only that the defendants were motivated by racial animus. Now it's saying, wait a minute. So what it's saying is they're making it clear, wait a minute, we got a little problem here. That's why I made it to the Supreme Court, because we got Caucasians over here that vandalized this synagogue, and they're bringing charge against them. But the judge is saying, y'all all look the same. How can you call this a racial issue? But let's see what else it says. It says, it is also necessary to allege that the animus was directed towards the kind of group that Congress intended to protect when it passed the statute P481 US 617. And it goes on to say Jews can state a 1982 claim of racial discrimination since they were among the people considered to be distinct races, right? And think about it. The Jewish community had people referring to them as being a race. And I exposed this, and when you look at the etymology dictionary of the word Jew online, you will see that they're referred to as a race. One of the races of Jews. But then if you actually have a physical copy of a physical etymology dictionary, you will not see this in there, right? But anyway, but it goes on to say Jews can state a claim of racial discrimination since they were among the people peoples considered to be distinct races, and hence within the protection of the statute at that time, or at the time it was passed, they are not foreclosed from stating a cause of action simply because the defendants are also part of what today is considered the Caucasian race. You see what I'm saying? It's like, wait a minute, but then it goes on where you see reverse and remanded. It goes on to say, we agree with petitioners. However, that the Court of Appeals erred in holding that Jews cannot state a claim against other white defendants. You notice what it says? The Jews cannot stake a claim against what? Other white defendants. But they saying this is the criteria that they can. That view rested on the notion that because Jews today are not thought to be members of a separate race, they cannot make out a claim of racial discrimination within the meaning of 1982, that construct of the section we have today. St. Francis College, it's just quoting a court case that they made reference to, but it goes on to say, our opinions in that case observed that definition of race when 1982 was passed were not the same as they are today, and concluded that, it goes on to say, to be distinct races, and hence within the protection of the statute, Jews are not foreclosed from stating a cause of action against other members of what today is considered to be part of the Caucasian race. In other words, what they're saying that, they can bring a case against another Caucasian only if it's about what? Them messing up their temple. They can't say it's racial discrimination, but they are what? Hindering their worship, their religious freedom. That's the only way that another Caucasian, they could sue a Caucasian, another white person per se, is if they're bringing charges against what? A hate against the freedom of religion. And that's why you'll never see when they like, when the synagogues got shot up, and I have it inside this presentation, when the synagogues got shot up by some Caucasians, guess what? You never saw the Caucasians being charged with a hate crime against race. It was always a hate crime against what? Religious practices.
And you know what? As a little kid, I was always confused. I remember asking. My mom would say, well, not my mom, but I was in class once. We were talking about Holocaust. I actually got in trouble because the lady said, they were persecuted because they were Jews. And I said, so they persecuted white people? And my teacher looked at me. She said, no, they were Jews. I said, well, what I see on the screen is white people. So are they white people or are they Jews? She said, they're the same thing. I said, I'm confused. I remember saying that. I said, so what is it? She said, it's a religion. And I was young. I said, oh, they didn't like them because they were Jews because of their religion. She said, no, because they were a race. I said, I'm still confused because they're white people. I remember that day. I got sent to the office. Yeah.
and this right here is one of the cases. Like I said, this particular presentation is like a, like my reference that I use when I'm dealing with the Jewish community that I pull from when I want to go to quick references. But notice what it says here: Pennsylvania man charged with federal hate crimes for Tree of Life synagogue shooting. Right, but notice the charges here. It says specifically the indictment charges 11 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious belief resulting in death, 11 counts of use of discharge of a firearm to commit murder during in relation to a crime of violence, 2 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs involving an attempt to kill and use of a dangerous weapon and resulting in bodily injury. 11 counts of use of discharge of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence. 8 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs involving an attempt to kill and use of a dangerous weapon and resulting in bodily injury to a public safety officer. 1 count of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs involving use of dangerous weapons and resulting in bodily injury to a public safety officer. But guess what? What charges that you don't see listed there?
Racism.
You don't see race there.
That's the same thing as a kid. Couldn't understand. Go to the office.
But you see what I mean?
it's confusing when you look at it, and it took me to be grown to add that up to say, oh, I get it. But they play it in media. They never say race or religion. They mostly just say because of racism, not racist, but discrimination against Jews. But they never say racism against Jews, if you catch it. But it was always that thing of, I was always like, so how are they, race is a factor when they look just like the normal European as a kid. They do. Everyone that or either they look more like a what you consider to be current Arab, but mostly it was just Caucasian. And I was just like, I just can't understand it. And I was mad. I remember that day. I meant she was going to explain that to me. You're going to explain this to me. So, but it is, you never see that where they talk about discrimination and not really race.
Now, guess what? I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here. See how, we're geeks up in here. Remember the guy that they called the slasher or whatever, what was that? The guy that went into the Jewish home or whatever while they was having whatever, an engagement, and he went in there and they said that he sliced a few people, stabbed a few people. And you remember when that happened during the same time? I mean, around the same time of the Jersey City shootings, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The man that went into the house, they were
this is the case right here. Let me see if I can move this animation out the way. Let me see so I can let me get to it real quick. Right? Like I said, this is like my data, my presentation right here. If I was dealing with the Jewish discussion, I can, you know what I mean? This is what I would use. Like, hey, what do you want to talk about? All right, well, let's talk about this area. Okay, I'll focus on this area. You know what I mean? This is like the database. Let's see here. Let me put this up here. And then we'll wrap it up here because I know we're going geek mode here. All right, but this is right here. Remember, though, it says Orange County man charged with federal hate crimes for December 28th, 2019 machete attack at rabbi's home. Right. And I was like, you know what? Let me see what crimes they're going to charge them. Right. Because you saw how the media said one thing. Remember, like the other, when you look at the news articles and news reports and look at the news about the other one I showed, they said, we're going to throw the law at them. We're going to charge them with hate crimes of race and all this other stuff. You saw the term race being used in the media, but did you see any crimes of racial hatred charged to that person, that perpetrator? Right now here, this is the guy, right, that they want to say that they believed to be a Hebrew Israelite, was trying to connect them to the Hebrew Israelites. But anyway, look at what it says here, right? Because they said they were going to throw the book at them. Racism, racial charge, all this other stuff, racial hate crimes. But look at here, Thomas, 37, is charged with 5 counts of obstructing the free exercise of what? Religion and attempt to kill, in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 247. Each of the 5 counts carry a maximum prison term of life. But guess what? What are we missing here? You see what I'm saying?
Raise its own question and concern, and the light bulb just went off here in the past couple of years. It's never about race. It's about religion. You cannot charge race, a racial hate crime on someone who is not a part of because the definition of racism and discrimination are 2 different things. So how can you get what I'm saying?
Well, this is where I believe they didn't charge him with racism, because they was throwing the term out anti-Semitism. And we know when you deal with the term Semitism, it ties into being what? Asiatic. So if the Jewish community said that he was operating in anti-Semitism, right? That means that saying that they call the Jewish community calling themselves Asiatic. So An Asiatic cannot sue another Asiatic for a hate crime of being Asiatic.
I'm having a confusion moment.
I know you're right. Right.
You know, they're like, how are they Asiatic? They're not.
But you see what I'm saying? Because they claim anti-Semitism.
Yep.
Right? And anti-Semitism stems from what? That word, or Semitism stems from the word Asiatic. Right? When you look up, when you do the definition and etymology of the word, you'll see it ties into what? Asiatic. Right? So
nobody want to be European. Everybody want to be.
You know what I mean?
So for them, if you call them European, they ready to fight.
Exactly. They don't mind being that in court, though. You know what I mean? Depending on what it is.
They not turn it on and off fast.
So you see how the court system, man, and see, I got other cases about this, but I go into I'll pull the court records, because I don't want to just deal with what everyone else is dealing with. I want to go to the court records. Let's see what the courts say. And as we see, I gave you 2 examples, right? 2 examples of court cases that, from the media perspective, they said that they were going to what? This is racism. But we see on paper, both court cases had nothing to do with any type of racial hatred.
Correct.
Now, I want to make this clear so no one take it out of context. We're not condoning the crime. We're not condoning that. We're against this type of these type of crimes, these type of acts, and all of that. So I want to make it clear, we're not condoning the crime. We're not trying to minimize the events that took place, but we're just dealing with the charges, dealing with the case itself, indictments and so forth. So this is public record. So you got to make that clear, because some people take it out of context, thinking that we are endorsing the people that may have carried out these crimes, these heinous crimes. So I want to make it clear, we don't support them, but just want to show, give an illustration of the court case itself, or what the people were charged.
Yeah, we got to always throw a disclaimer out there. We could say purple cow, and we have to explain that we're not being racist. I mean, come on. But I mean, that just comes with the territory. We have to be overly cautious in what we're saying, because then somebody will say, oh, they're condoning it, and we're not. So it's just interesting. We got to throw a disclaimer out there.
Yeah. So that's pretty much, I kind of wanted to deal with this tonight. And, I know I dealt with, we kind of threw a couple of things out there. And I know when you start dealing with these court cases, when you hearing the legal jargon, it can have you like, what did they just say there? You know what I mean? Until you actually start taking the layers off. Like I said, the first case I shared, it was a white person per se, and another white person. But then in the other case is they're trying to say that they're, the Jewish community say that they're Semitic. So that means that they are what? Asiatic, right? So if they're saying that they're Asiatic, wait a minute, we're Asiatic. So how can another Asiatic bring hate crimes charges against somebody else that's an Asiatic, saying that, hey, you hate me because I'm Asiatic?
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. It goes back. I would love, and they would never let us see. I would love to see what their jet match looks like. Someone who is an Ashkenazi and one that's Sephardic. I would love to see how that is laid out. But I don't think they would never allow us to really see it. Because if you look at it, even if we looked at their 23andMe or their ancestry, it would probably tell a whole nother story. Because if you notice, like if you look out on YouTube, when people talk about their results from like 23andMe and ancestry, I've never seen someone who is Ashkenazi really do that. Because I think that's like, you will see something totally different than what we would expect.
Absolutely. And that was the problem that they had with 23andMe, because many of the Jewish community, they were getting their results back, and it was pointing them right there to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be in the Middle East. And then like, so they sued and had their records removed.
That is so funny. You mad at the DNA company because they're not telling you what you want to hear. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So now the difference with Jed Match is like, look, you're gonna get what you get. You know what I mean? We're not doing anything. We just got these projects here that's based upon what you upload. So they would Jed Match would kind of, they don't have to deal with that type of attacks. Is because they don't they don't generate the DNA raw data. Only thing they're doing is saying, hey, you know what? I'm uploading this into our database, and based upon your information, these are the market. You know what I mean? That's what they do. They're not doing any testing, so they kind of take them off that hook.
And we have to be careful with the term of Iberian Peninsula, because they love to use that term. And when you look at it, it still doesn't point them to the area, because I'm looking at one now, and it shows one person shows like 30% southern Italy, Iberian Peninsula 16, Northeast Europe 19. And then they love to add little things like the Levant. What do they define the Levant as? And that still has a very low percentage level. And then you got Turkey. You don't even see Iran on here. You don't see none of the Middle East. That's interesting. I'm gonna do a little bit of research, because I want to look at their results. I really want to look at their results. It's hard to find, but you can dig and find something.
Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to, kind of like talk about that, is because, that's where the confusion is. It's a lot of things, basic words that you pointed out, that is a word of confusion. And one of those words are Jew and Gentile. Right. Another word of confusion is when we deal with the word church. And I literally address those words and really give the full understanding of, for example, church was a construct that, was not used until the 3rd century, going into the 4th century. But now everyone is referring to the church, calling themselves a church.
Oh, wow. I got to show you something when we get done. It's all over the place. It's like they're spread with so much. It's interesting. I'm going to do some more research, because I want to see what some of these Jed Match results look like for Ashkenaz. I'm going to see if I can find some stuff, because it's interesting. Nothing. I don't see anything within here that points to the Middle East at all. In fact, we all have more Middle Eastern from what I see with this person who's 71% Ashkenazi, and he's 27% British Isles and 6% Northeast Europe. That's interesting.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm doing something here. Somebody posted about me having a super chat. No, I don't have the super chat. It's not even. I didn't even enable it or anything like that. So, Sister E been getting on me.
Yep.
So I'll just put my what you call it, my
Cash App
up here for those that want to.
Y'all,
what is it? What is my Cash App?
Oh my goodness, are you serious? Yeah, I gotta help my brother. Make sure he can remember. You gave me your Cash App once. Hold on. I don't have my phone.
Is it Pastor PFR?
I think it is. You don't even have it on your YouTube, do you?
Nope.
Oh, jeez. Hold on. I'm so over you right now. Let me see. I have it. I don't know where I have it though, because I have Cash App you once. Hold on. Let me go get my phone. Hold tight. Keep talking. I'll be right back.
So I didn't enable and go through the process for the super chat. So I just, Sister E been getting on me about that. So, thank you, Sister Carol, $ Pastor PFR. So I went on and posted that for those that want to, donate or contribute to what's going on, what we're doing here. But I appreciate you guys for wanting to support the ministry. Really do. And
I'm looking.
I'll put this up. Yeah, it's $ Pastor PFR.
I should have known Carol had it. She had it last time. Cool. Oh my goodness. Carol, we gotta help him. Make sure our brother have his Cash App. You can actually pin it.
You
Like,
can?
yeah, you just got to go and can I pin stuff on here? Because oh no, I can't pin it. You have to pin it and you can put it at the top of your chat. I'll show you how to do it.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
go into your Cash App, add the link from your Cash App in the comment section and pin it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'll work on that, guys. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. And matter of fact, let me show a couple of clips here real quick. And I just want to get your thoughts real quick, Sister E. And we're going to call it a wrap. Let's see. Let me see here.
We may be talking for a minute when I show you this, what I just ran across.
Okay.
It's a doozy.
All right.
Funny.
So let's show these two. It's a couple of clips. Some of you guys are already familiar with it, but I want to show it anyway because we do have other people. We have Ashkenazis that's stating that we're the people of the book, right? But no one is talking about them. We have. So let me show a couple of clips real quick.
Africa has the seed of Israel all throughout the continent. All throughout the continent. This was a surprise for me, friends, when I saw these clusters in Africa, when I start to hear the report. Friends, because of you, we distribute 1,000 books. And our people rejoicing, our people returning to the roots. We are starting to hear reports of revelation in Africa of the Jewishness among the Lembas from Kenya, from the Igbos, from Madagascar. We're getting all of those reports, and God spoke to me before I even opened the scriptures. And he says to me, you know what this is happening? This is happening because the bride have an article of clothing in Africa, and unless Africa is ready, the bride cannot be ready.
Now you notice, Sister E, that nobody's going to talk about that rabbi saying what God said to him.
Yeah.
No, nobody's going to talk about that rabbi of saying, hey, this is what God showed me.
They'll say, "Poor rabbi, they twisted his words up, and they have made him say that." they love to twist the words up. He brought that up. Actually, he has a video where he was talking to the Lemba.
Oh yeah, I got that here.
Yep.
I can't upload it because I didn't. I should have uploaded. I started to upload it. I got that here with I got the entire video, and I actually took some clips out of it too. So it was a great discussion. I was kind of upset on a couple of things, but you know how it goes with they go to our communities and want to bring their books to it and push their version of Judaism. Push Judaism on them, and that's what Rabbi Hamadishi pointed out.
Yep, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of there are key prophecies that can only transpire with the bloodline Israel, that I think they've come to the realization that they can't fulfill it. One being that temple, and I think me and you had that conversation. I don't think we agree. I think we agree. I don't know if we agree, but that temple is key, and how the temple is going to be built. The temple has to be built by the Levitical priest. It cannot be built by non-Levites. I think that they need the bloodline Israel that's why they want you to receive Judaism. And what's interesting is they've gone over to Africa with the bloodline and tried to do that. I'm concerned that they've already tried that here as well, because if you look at individuals with our communities that are embracing Judaism, they embrace them. But us that don't embrace Judaism, they don't have anything to do with it. And I think it has something to do with the prophecies. So those are my thoughts. So
You see what Sankofa John pointed out while the rabbi was talking?
Wait a minute. Hold on. I can't see.
I put it up on the screen. Was that velvet? Was that velvet?
I was getting ready to drink some water. That was.
Was that velvet? All right, Sankofa, I'm gonna have to give you the 3-piece for that. Caught me off guard with that one. Had me cracking up. All right, let me show you one more video here, another clip about just so that way the people can see that, you know, for those that may not be that may be coming into understanding their identity now, but at least let me show you a couple of clips from what they are saying from that community about our community. Here's another one.
Because we hear this, you know, in circles that I'm in, is that if you are a Black Jew, somewhere throughout the generation you converted to Judaism or some form of ancient Hebrew culture. But what you're saying is that doesn't have to be the case. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in the case of both of if you accept that the Lem were originally Jewish, and if you accept that the evidence is sufficiently strong, and maybe it's slightly circumstantial, maybe. You really have to put you have to place a lot of faith on the genetic argument with respect to the Cohen modal haplotype and so on. But it seems to be robust enough to carry the story.
All right, so yeah, so there we have it right there. Another person, and I got more clips from Tudor Parfit sharing his thoughts. And here's the flip side. This is why it's important for us to know who we are and know the text for ourselves. But this is the flip side of someone from the Ashkenazi community, the Jewish community. This is what they say about DNA and the Most High.
This is how the Zohar interprets the opening words of Genesis. The Hebrew is Bereshit bara Elohim, which we usually translate, in the beginning, God created. But the Zohar insists on reading the words in the precise order in which they appear in Hebrew. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara, it created, Elohim, God. In the beginning, it created God. The Zohar takes that to mean, in the beginning, infinity created God. Now, what could that possibly mean? God is now the object of the verse, not the subject, which sounds impossible or heretical, but the Zohar, I think, is saying that infinity is the true reality of God. Anything else that we call God is puny compared to that. That's our own imagination or our own estimate of what God could be.
What?
All right, so we'll stop that right there.
This is my first time y'all experiencing a 3-piece. I've not been on a live with him, and this is funny.
And guess what, guys? We got to throw it out. We got to throw the trash out. Matter of fact, let's do it one more time. A 3-piece. And let's toss it.
I can't.
It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over!
All right, that's it.
I'm laughing out loud. Oh my goodness. This is hilarious. Y'all have created a monster with this one right here. Everything is going to be a 3-piece. Because every time you want something, they like, "Where's the 3-piece?" I'm like, this is my channel. I don't have the 3-piece. No,
well, I tell you guys, we be on the lookout for the video. It's just anything that you want to share with the people before we wrap up, or anything to look out for.
Oh yeah. So y'all be looking out for another conversation with Kohen Hamadishi. And I've also reached out to someone from the Igbo tribe. I think both of us know more Cletus. I always say his name wrong. I'm gonna have a conversation with him. I am actively working on, if y'all have noticed, I haven't done anything here lately for the past week other than, done stuff with the brothers or whatnot. But as far as really doing a lot on my own channel, it's just getting some things lined up. And I got a big one coming soon. And it's going to be a big interview. I just need to get a few more people engaged, but this one is going to be a good one. Put it like that. Put it like this, Limbo will be engaged in this conversation. So everybody stay tuned. I will keep everybody posted. I don't want the haters to know what I'm doing so they can start creating their videos, but just to let them know, be ready, because I'm doing something really. It's going to be an interesting conversation. Pastor Kelly knows, a couple of people know, but it's going to be interesting. But that will be in December. December will be about the different African tribes as well, and to bring them into the conversation piece, to talk about their history and their legacy and other individuals. And I will be doing another iteration of great women in the Bible, and dealing with women in the Israelite community. And I've added a new person to my panel, which is Mazuz. She'll be added. So just stay tuned. It's a lot of stuff. That's why, like I said, I've been kind of quiet, because I need to get focused and figure out what's going to be the next term for me. But it's going to be interesting interviews and conversations coming.
Great. And we'll be looking out for that. And if you want to put together an ad too, I could put it together and, also show it up on here, until that, for people that are here to see the ad, or, the advertisement on that. So it'll be on your channel, but then we can have it here, like how I do my clips, just so that way people could see the announcement on that. And I encourage everyone, be on the lookout for that, because he's going to share, like he always does, pertinent information about our history, about who we are, about things that we're just not taught. The history books will not teach us. So just be on the lookout on that. And from this end, I'll, as we get ready to close out, I'll just show you the advertisement for the upcoming part 2. Be on the lookout for that. It's going to drop soon. It's going to drop soon. It's definitely going to drop by next Saturday, but it's going to drop very soon. Still doing some edits on there and waiting for a couple of additional inputs, and it'll be out there. So with that being said, family, have a blessed night. And, we'll, until we come again at the next playbook, which is next Thursday, we're going to have some interesting discussions. And I'll post it ahead of time of what we're going to talk about. But nevertheless, have a blessed night. Shalom.
Garfield Reed claims that there's a gentleman who made a documentary on the subject and sold it to a university. He might be bringing out more information on that. That it was a gentleman who was, studied in Hebrew and looked at it and concluded that, I forget what the conclusion was. But
Garfield asked specifically, why would I even let, Pastor Kelly speak about him specifically? Why would I even give him the floor to discuss these things? But I believe things do need to be discussed. This, in that sense, is bad if he made an original video trying to claim that these are our people building these churches were Hebrews and building these pews. They were Hebrews, and this was the faith that they were practicing, and they knew it, and the powers that be are hiding it. If it was used as an evangelistic tool and it come to find out it's not right and exact, the pastor has to say, all right, I made a little error here. The church people have to change certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, that still don't have anything to do with blacks in America being Hebrew, but that was just faulty. I can't stand on that and ride on it on the strength that somebody's a pastor, and just because pastors say, because y'all are just as bad as the black church now. Just believe in pastor without doing any research. I mean, maybe everybody that's an urban apologist don't automatically agree with everything that Vocab said. But like I said, Vocab, his good outweighs his bad to the urban apologetic community with the amount of work that he put in, because all Vocab basically is touching on Islam a little bit here and there, but he's heavy with the Israelite thing.
Wait, that don't sound right. Just wait 1 second, that don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right.